How are you, my friends? Thank you for the support you give me. It's possible to continue with this podcast, and it would be practically impossible to continue with this project without it. Today I bring you a story that many of you already know or have heard. Any version or comment on this, as you already know, what I always try to do is bring you the information that I can confirm, and I tell it to you in as much detail as possible, so you can delve in and feel as if you were there when it all happened. Today, I'm going to tell you a bit about the tragic resignation of the young Marcial Fernandez, the son of Mr. Manuel Fernandez Valencia, which many of you may know as the animal or the puerca. And I will also tell you about the Levanton of Israel Rincon Martinez, known as El Puma or El Gu4cho, one of the bosses of gunmen from the Beltran Leyva. Well, first and foremost, I send my regards to Mr. Manuel Fernandez and want him to know that the story I'm going to tell is done with a lot of respect to his son and to him. And I don't want you to think that I am disrespecting Marcial's memory, because that is not my intention. Not at all the opposite. I want to inform the public and show them how things were. The facts, really, and as I always say, there are innocent resignations, whether intentional or by mistake. But unfortunately, they always exist. And what I'm telling you is mostly because personally, I find it very tough for a parent to lose a child. Very painful. Let's start by telling you a bit about Marcial so you know who we are talking about in this story. Marcial, born in the United States, he was a very cheerful young man. He was often seen in the city of Culiacan at parties and clubs. Also in the city of Guadalajara was seen in celebration. Always dressed very elegantly years before. Of this I tell you, his mother and brother had died in a car accident. He was a young man very spoiled by his father, who affectionately called him Cachorro. Don Manuel even gave him a plane to please Marcial. It was a Piper Matrix, white color. In this picture that I'm going to show you, you can see Marcial inside the airplane I've been talking about. Printed thousands and thousands of photographs to distribute them among people, and offer fairly large sums of money to those who provided information about the stray, or if possible better that they surrender him. These photos I'm going to show you are some of the ones that thousands of copies were printed, the places where copies were made. Workers looked very scared because the bulletins were made as in the Old West. They said wanted alive or resigned. If you have information about this subject, call these phone numbers or a member of the telcar. That was something the workers in the establishments had never seen, and therefore, it made them very nervous. Here I show you the pictures that were printed from the Gu4cho. That was on one hand the thing about the photos, and on the other hand, it was mentioned to all the people known or unknown who could help with information about the Gu4cho. The truth is that the Gu4cho had Culiacan under siege. Several places known to be associated with him or could be related were blown up. Other places weren't busted, people just showed up and sprayed them. All out. Weeks, days went by, and the Gu4cho was nowhere to be found. So Ivan and Alfredo pressed their dad to demand from Mochomito Alfredo Beltran Guzman to surrender the Gu4cho, since they knew he was in touch with him and listened to him. So the Chapos, they summoned Alfredito, and they talked straight to him, telling him many people are upset. Why is Alfredito allowed to be in Culiacan if he is a Beltran and has communication with them? And they want to resign him, but Pocha has defended him and kept them at bay. But it was already unsustainable. Either give up Gu4cho or leave Culiacan. And immediately thereby he will become an enemy, and they would go after him. And nobody was going to protect him. Clearly, Alfredito didn't think twice and agreed to cooperate. So they made the plan to call the guy. Here's a photo of Alfredito Beltran so you can recognize him. So Alfredito called Gu4cho and told him he needed to see him to discuss some very delicate matters, but it had to be just him because everything was very heated. The Gu4cho accepted right away since he was the boss's son. Well, when they had El Gu4cho, Alfredo Guzman, he called Marcial Fernandez to tell him and give him the news that they already had the Gu4cho with them. As soon as he knew where he was going to be, he was going to let him know so he could head there. The Gu4cho and his boys. They took him to the village of Piedritas, towards El Dorado, to a place owned by Bravo. Here I show you again the coordinates of this place. And that's exactly where Gu4cho was, unable to move. Well, quite a few people met at that place. Since the Gu4cho was a person of great interest to the Sinaloa organization, everyone wanted to see him. They confirmed it was true what was being said, that he was indeed detained, and some wanted to ask him questions. Among the first to show up at the place, it was 50, because he was the one who took Gu4cho. Bravo was there, so were Ivan, Alfredo, Juancho, Barbarino, Minilik, then gradually arrived Ovidio, then Mayito Gordo, along with him Chino Anthrax, Pancho Arce, Cheo Anthrax. Min's uncle Colores and many others also arrived, but I'll explain from inside the bathroom, where the Gu4cho was under the shower. Beside him was the Bravo. Alfredo went out to greet him, and when Manuel, he went into the bathroom, his face changed, his face contorted, and his eyes watered. And he really let the Gu4cho have it. He hit him all over his body. In fact, I think there's a video of the Gu4cho where you can see he has a black eye. I believe it was the animal. Everyone was serious and silent watching the animal's rage. He was saying to El Gu4cho, "Why did you do it? He was a kid. What had he done to you? He was a kid. Let me alone. I want to eat it." "I'm going to eat you," the animal said, "with my hands and my mouth." It was something that left anyone speechless, until they saw that the animal's actions were becoming increasingly intense. They told him it was best to remove him to calm down and not to touch him because of a bad hit, and he could resign him. And obviously they wanted him alive, and the animal told them, he said to the people, "Why do you want this dog alive if he didn't give my son a chance?" But orders are orders. They calmed down the animal, and they ended up removing him from the bathroom. The animal's rage was so intense it literally roared like a beast. When Rayton arrived, he grabbed a baseball bat given to him by the secretary of the Bravo. Nicknamed SpongeBob, he started hitting them, shouting, "Do you know who you're fighting? Do you know you're fighting Chapo Guzman? No one can beat Chapo Guzman." I'm told those who were watching that action were whispering among themselves, laughing at Ovidio, who they had located. Where were the offices located? I mean, the usual in those situations. Among all those questions, the famous Chino Anthrax approached him and said, "Hey, is it true you dressed as a woman to go unnoticed in Culiacan?" And the guy burst out laughing at him, said I was walking normally. Always geared up. "No way I don't know Culiacan. This is where I'm from," the Gu4cho said. And to make a good impression, the Chino said once you slipped away from me, they told me you were at the city club and I rushed over like a dog. I went alone without the guys and I went in geared up for you. And then Gu4cho said, "Look, I never knew if I was really into you or if you had, you should have called me. Wherever you had told me, I would have clashed with you. The truth is, I never ever did anything to you just because I didn't want to. But you always knew where you were. You live it up in nightclubs, in restaurants. 6 times a month, they told me. I never did anything to you because the orders that had been given to me. It was about going after important people, more on the uncle's side, referring to the Pocha. And I knew that if I messed with you, everything would get complicated. Because everyone was confident, and why stir up a hornet's nest? Stay sharp, because the one you least expect is constantly putting you in the spotlight at the gym, at parties, clubs. Seriously, I spared you just because I didn't want to. And the Chinese guy stayed silent, dying of embarrassment. And all that came out was an awkward laugh. And the Gu4cho told him, "Well, you know me well. I don't see why this mistrust. You could have talked to me and we could have met anywhere to have a shootout." And it left the Chino speechless. Manuel Torres was on one side of the Yoma, and he gritted his teeth. And he said to the Yoma, "Let me have him for a little while or give me 30 minutes with him. And he's going to say if he did it, he'll tell me the truth." Yoma told him not to because he's going to help my compadre. He already said so. After that, Yoma went back to where the pocha was. Manuel Torres stood in front of the Gu4cho and told him, "Now, you will find out what's good just for a little while. I'll have you," and he was savoring it.